Hello, welcome back to the garden. If you didn't know, I'm a novice gardener and I'm building a large garden here in eastern North Carolina, growing zone 8B. Not that it really matters except for the fact that the ground doesn't freeze and the summers are broiling hot. That being said, I've planted a lot of plants over the last few years that either haven't performed or are not in a good location due to either environmental factors or deer. I'm in a fairly rural community and there's a lot of deer around here. In fact, on a good night, I can watch a herd of 6 to 8 deer just walk right through the garden. Now, I've been learning to deal with this in various means by either putting up motion sprinklers to chase the deer away, keep them away from, let's say, the rose garden, which they love, or to plant things out that they really don't enjoy. Some of the plants that I have planted out, though, they do enjoy, and I enjoy, and they're just not in a good location for me to enjoy them while the deer enjoy them. If that makes any sense. Basically, the deer are eating my plants. I need to move the plants. So now, while in winter, while the plants are either dormant or in a semi-dormant state, I'm going to start moving some of those plants, and some of the plants that I've planted also are not in good locations because maybe they're in too much shade or maybe the ground just isn't quite right for them. Either way, today we're going to be moving some plants. So let me grab my shovel, a cart, and let's go start digging up some plants. Now here's my red twig dogwood, and this is one of the plants I was talking about that really should be here with large, beautiful red stems. Unfortunately, though, the deer keep nibbling at it and they keep it pruned for me. So I'm going to dig this up and we're going to move it, and I'll show you what I'll do with it in a little bit. Now, believe it or not, this couple of twigs here is a hibiscus. And they've never, this one, and there's another one just a little further down here, they've never achieved their full potential because the deer tend to eat them. They'll flourish back in the springtime. They'll start to get a little large. Maybe I'll get 1 or 2 flowers out of them if I'm lucky. And then the deer come along and eat the whole thing right down to the stem. So I'm going to dig these up, this one and the other one. And then as well as the red twig, I'm going to show you what we'll do with them. All right, so we're back in the veg garden here, and I have my 3 plants, my red twig dogwood and 2 hibiscus. One I know the name of because I found the tag. The other one I have no idea, but it's in a book or a journal somewhere in the house, and I will look that up at a later point in time. What I'm going to do with these eventually is they're going to go into the rose garden, and the rose garden will offer them the most amount of protection from the deer due to the fencing I added last year, and also the motion sprinkler, which tends to keep the deer out of that space. Now, it's not deer proof, but it's going to be a whole lot better than where they were at the edge of the property in a much more open and unprotected space. But where I'm going to put them in the rose garden is not ready yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn around and pot these up. Now, this red twig I'm going to put into this large container here. This came from some other shrub that I had purchased a couple of years ago. Kept the container, and I'm going to put that in that, and I'm going to use a combination of compost on the bottom, probably 3 to 4 inches, and then I'll use potting soil because I want the thing to be able to drain out. So I think it'll be okay, again, if I add just a little bit of compost on the bottom and then the rest of it will be potting soil. But one of the things that's also important for me to do, which I've pretty much already done with this red twig, is make sure that I've gotten all the grass and the pine trees and anything else, any other weeds out of there. And as you can see, it's got a pretty good root system here. Now, I'm not an expert at red twig dogwoods. I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I'm still learning, I'm figuring these things out. But I know you're supposed to give them a trim every now and again, and that's, I think, to keep the stems red. If I'm wrong in any of this, or if I'm mistaken, or if you guys have experience with red twigs dogwoods, please leave those comments below. Like I said, the deer have been trimming this one for me for a number of years. So I'm just going to turn around and pot this up, and then hopefully that will give it the best chance of long-term survival, and we'll see what happens. So just like that, the red twig dogwood is now all potted up. Hopefully it'll do fine in this pot, and hopefully it'll thrive. If you guys think I should do some pruning now while it's dormant, or any advice on red twig dogwoods, please let me know in those comments below. But this one's done. Let me get the 2 hibiscus done. Well, let me show you something first before I pot those up. Now, each of these hibiscus, I don't know if you've ever grown hibiscus before. If you have, let me know your opinions, thoughts, comments, etc. in the comments below. But they have these thick, fleshy roots. They're almost like tubers in a sense. It's pretty wild. Now, this one has 2 stems. I'm going to leave these stems and we'll see what happens. Now, this one is Starry Night Hibiscus, and if I can find a picture for that on the interwebs, I'll post it up here. Starry Night Hibiscus, this one. Like I said, the other one I don't know, but I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to pot both of them up. They'll live here in the vegetable garden for at least a year, maybe a little longer. I don't know, because I don't know how long it's going to take me to finish the areas of the rose garden that I want them to go in. And right now I'm thinking the hibiscus may go along the far side of the rose garden, which is still composting. It's still doing its compost in place. I've touched on that in other rose garden videos, and I'll probably touch on that again later in the year. And the red twig, I'm thinking maybe along the back fence line, well, along with a bunch of other plants. But again, those areas still aren't ready for any sort of planting yet. We'll have to wait and see, but for the time being, I'm going to pot them up, and then I want to show you what else we're going to move. Okay, another silly thing I did was I planted this arborvitae. I think that's what this is. Tulia Green Giant, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And though it is alive and it is doing well, it's not going to thrive here long term. Even short term, it's not going to do well because it doesn't get, you can see it's actually kind of in shade right now, and I think we're about, let's see, 12 o'clock in the afternoon. It'll get another 3 to 4 hours of sunlight before it goes back into shade again. It's actually not good for the plant. Again, this is why it's not really thriving. So I need to move this to a sunnier spot. But I want to put something here to help sort of fill in this gap and act as a screen between me and my neighbor. So nothing wrong with my neighbor. I just, again, privacy and all that. So what I want to do is I'm going to dig this up and I'm going to replace it with this, which looks like a boxwood, but it's actually a holly. It might even be a Japanese holly. What you really can't see, and I can't get the camera to focus on, so I'm not even going to try, is that the edges are serrated. Hence the reason it's a holly, but it looks like a boxwood. Either way, it should do fine in this location, short term and even long term. Theoretically, hypothetically, because this is also the edge of the shaded fern garden that I'll eventually be putting in or building over the next, let's say, 5 to 10 years. And it's going to take me quite a while to establish the plants that I need to create the shade so I can plant the ferns. But that's a story for another day. Right now, this guy is going to come out. This guy is going to go in its place. There we go. Yeah. There we go. Okay, so here I am out at the end of the orchard, and I have planted 2 other few years ago. I believe again they're Tulia, THG. It's something like Swedish, I don't know, but green giants. And I'm going to put the next one here, the one that we just dug up from over there. This location gets a lot more sun. It gets about, oh God, I don't know, 10, 12 hours of sun a day. During the summertime, it gets a lot more sun. So I think this will be much better for the plant. Now, it is at the end of the orchard, and I do have apple trees and pawpaw trees and other trees that are in front of it, as it were, from the sun. And eventually this will become a shady spot. Eventually, 5 to 10, maybe longer years down the road. For the meantime, though, I think this is a good spot, and I think these plants, I'm hoping that these plants really start to fill out and grow over the next few years. Just gonna take this guy, drop him right here in the ground, and then backfill around it and water. And there are a couple more plants that I want to move. So Let me show you those. Here I am at the street side of the orchard, and my plan was to turn around and plant up the entire frontage, as it were, of the orchard with Sunshine ligustrum. It's a non-invasive privet, but it doesn't, well, you can see that the plants don't look all that great. Now, I'm not sure why. They do apparently like full sun, so they get a lot of sun. I'm not sure what's going on with these plants, and also during the summertime, spring and summer, they seem to have some sort of bug on them. They have a lot of like webbing on them. I'm not sure what's going on there. If it's some sort of spider or if it's a caterpillar. Sorry, something on my hand. I'm not sure what's going on. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to dig up the 4 that are in front of me. I'll leave these 3 behind me. But I'm also going to try is I'm going to take another one of those Japanese hollies that we planted over in that other side. I'm going to plant them right over here. See if this plant does any better. If it does do better, then what I'll eventually do is take up the remaining 3. I will plant up this whole area then with the Japanese holly here, and I'm presuming it's a Japanese holly. It could be something else, but it's definitely a holly because it has the serrated leaves, unless I'm wrong on that too, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Either way, I'm going to plant one of these here, see what it does. I know they do really well in front of the house. That's what I have against the house there, so they get blazing hot sun. They tolerate a lot, so I'm going to plant one of these, see if it does any better, and again, if it does, I'll plant up. Now, the ones that I dig up today, I'm not going to throw out. I think I'm going to hard prune them back, put them into pots, and leave them over in the veg garden, maybe on the potting table, and see what happens long term. Do they recover? Do they start to thrive again? And if they do, and I can salvage these plants, I'll then find another home for them elsewhere in the garden. All right, so these are the Sunshine ligustrums here that we just pulled out of the ground, and they are very sad looking. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just try to get rid of some of these branches that are they just look dead, and they don't really look like they're serving any purpose whatsoever. Again, these plants may have had some sort of disease. In fact, I think I just found some sort of cocoon. Out that goes. Get off my plant. And I'm just going to prune these back pretty hard in the hopes that we can bring these guys back to life and then maybe replant them someplace else in the garden. There's a saying, and many of you experienced gardeners already know this. If you're not an experienced gardener, or if you're new to gardening, there's a saying, right place, right plant in the right spot. Something along those lines. Just trying to make sure I get the potting soil all around the roots. I'll give the pot a good shake just to help with that. And that one's settled in. I'm putting them in fairly large pots here. And part of the reason is just because if they do take off, I want them to have room for the roots to grow. Again, I'm hoping that I can get these plants to come back and thrive, because I spent a little penny on them here. And I'd hate for these things to, yeah, this one's the same thing. I'm just going to go hard. And I'm hoping that what will happen by trimming them back hard, because I've seen this method done elsewhere. And maybe I'm not doing it right, but this is what I'm doing. But I'm hoping that it turns around and stimulates the roots to really take off and take a hold. And then, see, part of this thing is I feel like there's a lot of the old compost around these roots. And maybe that's part of the problem. I'm going to try to pull some of that old compost away from these roots. Yeah, I'm just trying to give these plants the best possible chance. Just using my fingers, tuck that in. Give the pot a little shake. That looks good. That one's done. And that one's done. And that one's done. And of course, you got to give the plants a good thorough watering. We are supposed to get rain this weekend, but there's 2 problems with that. 1, I don't trust the weatherman. And 2, since these roots have been pulled out of the ground, I don't want them drying out. If the roots dry out, the plant's done. At this point, they look really rough, and it doesn't look like they have much of a chance. But again, I'm hoping that by doing what I've done here, by being as extreme as I have, I've given these plants now a fighting chance, and maybe they recover. They do recover, and I can use them elsewhere in the garden, I will. If they don't recover, well, then they become compost and we move on. So I'm taking advantage of some of this nice weather we're having and the upcoming rain we're gonna have, and I'm moving some of these plants that needed to get moved anyways. Again, some of these plants were because the deer were eating on them. They were in not the right place for the plant. Some of them because they weren't growing or thriving, such as that arborvitae or even the sunshine ligustrums. So now I've taken them and I've moved them to some place where I hope they do better. Those sunshine ligustrums I was rough with, but I'm hopeful that they do make a recovery. And if they do make a recovery, I'm hopeful they make a recovery, Sophie. If they do make a recovery, then I can again plant them somewhere else out in the garden, and I haven't wasted whatever they cost me initially. And I think that's one of the great things about gardening is that you can do these things. You can turn around and plant something someplace, and in most cases, you can turn around and move it to a different location if you need to at some point in the future. The flower garden is just like that. I'm not really caring at this point where I put the flowers, because at some point in the future I can come back and I can dig up those flowers and I can move them. In fact, some of them may even need to be dug up because they may need to be divided once certain flowers, and again, you experts know all this, and if I'm wrong about any of this, please leave a comment below. Let me know, correct me if I'm wrong. But many flowers, if they start clumping too much, then they won't flower as readily, so they need to be divided. I believe dahlias are like that, so if you don't divide a dahlia every, I don't know, 3 to 5 years, let's say, again, I'm not an expert in these things, so don't quote me, but you need to dig it up, allegedly, and divide it so that it thrives anymore. Me personally, I would dig it up just to get more dahlias. So this is just another thing, another project that I needed to get done, and I wanted to get done, and doing it now while it's cooler out is a good idea. Some of you up north, you can't do it because your ground is frozen. Again, I'm a growing zone 8B. I'm able to, I have this ability. What? Sophie wants to go chase things. Go. She wants to go bark at the neighbor. So if you haven't checked out my Etsy store, please go check out my Etsy store. I've just recently put up some new products up there, some various prints, and I hope again in the near future to have more. I want to keep adding stuff to the store. Maybe something will attract your guys' attention. If you haven't bought my book, please go check out my book, Pictures from My Garden. I know, very clever title, but it's filled with all sorts of fun pictures that you may have only seen once over on any of my social media platforms. So you can go back and look at them over and over again if you wish. Plus there's pictures in the book that I haven't posted anywhere on social media, so it'd be the first time you ever get to see those pictures. So again, go check that out either over on the Etsy store or over on Amazon. All the links are below for this. Please check out all the links below. If you see something that says affiliate link and you decide to click on it, it's no cost to you. I just make a small commission if you purchase something through one of those links. So if you go to Nature Hills and you buy yourself a little shrub or some sort of plant for the springtime, again, I get a small commission for that, no cost to you guys. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, click that bell icon to be notified when I do post up a new video, and this way you can keep track as to what's going on. I think we're going to be doing, the next video is going to be, I'm going to be showing you some more seed sowing, because there's more seeds to be sown. There's a lot of seeds to be sown for springtime. So I think I'm going to be doing some of that over the rainy weekend. Spring is coming, it's right around the corner, and we're ramping up to that. Thank you for watching. I'm going to catch you on the next one. Bye-bye.